So I wanted to just talk about me for a moment, right? And really, this course is all about you and your growth and development. But I understand some of you want to like, who are you, Joe, and why should we listen to you? Well, let's talk about that right now. I'd love to share with you my story. Um, for me, I remember very distinctly when I was a child, and it was before I was a teenager for sure. I mean, as a kid, yeah, there's like all these little crazy little experiences that I had, but this one really stands out in that I remember I was sleeping one night, and in the middle of the night, for whatever reason, I just woke up, and there I am laying in my bed, and I wake up and I just look up at the ceiling, and I kind of saw like this light, right? It's like a soft glow of a light. And I was looking at this light. I was just kind of transfixed, maybe still half asleep, and from that light, I just like my grandmother passed away, and it was more of a thought. It's like a passing thought. It's not like I said it out loud. It's not like I was trying to think about it. It's like my grandmother passed away. Now, mind you, I'm Filipino, okay, and my grandmother, mind you, she lived in the Philippines, right? So here I am in California, and in the middle of the night, it's like 2 a.m. Seeing this light, I was like, she passed away. And then I look around. I was like, oh, I don't see any lights. It's not like a headlight kind of thing, like how headlights pass through your window. Like there was none of that. It was just like, okay. And then as soon as I saw that light, it just disappeared, right? So it was almost like that message was delivered. Now, as a child, I didn't know what was going on with that. Um, I wake up the next day, and what news do we wake up to? Hey, Joe, your grandma died last night, or it was daytime during there in the Philippines. All right. So it's like, how did I know that? There's no way. There's no way I could have known that. And so I remember as a child, I'm like, that's weird. Yeah. And I didn't want to talk to anyone about that. Right. I didn't want to tell people like, oh yeah, I had this crazy vision. Oh, I knew she died. Like, who's gonna say that? Who's gonna believe you anyway? Right. And so it's not anything I ever talked about. It's not anything that I ever wanted to talk about. I didn't want people to think I was weird, let alone like what will happen if I actually did tell people, let alone like, oh my gosh, I just sent someone died. That's weird. That's crazy. That's scary. Right? As a kid, that's not normal. So, that happened. And then I kind of turned it off, like I ignored the abilities throughout my teens, but stuff will pop up here and there just like that. I'd have like lights turn off, like street lights. I'd walk under the street light and they'd always just turn off, and it's like someone trying to tell me something. There was always some kind of energy to it, right? Like, I have a message for you. And I always felt like the sense of like it might have been like a uncle that had passed away, or like my grandmother. And my grandmother, actually, just real quick side story, she is a healer. And her mother, my great grandmother, I found out she was a healer too. And so I kind of come from this lineage of healers. And what's interesting about my grandmother is that back in the Philippines, and this is my grandmother on my mom's side, the other grandmother is my grandmother on my dad's side. My grandmother on my mom's side, imagine in the Philippines, there's no healthcare, let alone like healthcare today, right? So back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, back then, 70s, because of her healing ability, she was like the town healer, right? So she was like everyone's healthcare in a way. And the way she would heal, she would take her hands and she would, like, if someone had a stomach ache, my aunt told me one time that little girl came in, the little girl had a stomach ache. My grandmother would put her hands on the little girl's stomach, And then, I don't know, within minutes, that little girl's tummy ache went away, right? So, many of you are like natural healers here anyway. You might have similar experiences. But, that's just kind of a little bit more about my background, about where I came from, and part of my lineage, if you want to call that. So, anyway, going back to my story, right? I told you about my childhood. Later on in life, I was I had a bad breakup, right? A bad relationship breakup. And I was seeing a therapist. Okay. And this therapist, um, I chose someone on purpose that was very spiritual. And this lady, she had like a Zen Buddhist background. And she was also, very good at what she does as far as therapy. And so I was like, this is perfect. And so there we were, us sitting in front of her, sitting across from her. And we were talking about relationships and like what's your relationship with your father and how fathers affect like your relationship world, like all that connection, right? And so there I was sitting there just listening to her talk. And next thing you know, I just saw her. Her mouth was moving, but I could not hear a word she was saying. Like nothing. And then next thing you know, like this, it looked like a cloud, right? Very similar to like when I was a child, like that light that just showed up on the ceiling. Like this, it's like a cloud formed up above her head. But it's not like a cloud in the sky, but it was like, I couldn't even describe it. It was very heavenly. It was like the spiritual energy kind of thing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what is that? And meanwhile, with her, she was just talking blah 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 blah. Father, father. I don't even know what she was saying, right? And again, I was just that energy had just had me transfixed, and I just heard, not even heard, but felt, heard, sensed. I don't know what the right word is even. And all of a sudden, she was talking, and I was just compelled to just kind of interrupt her, and I said, so what was your relationship like with your father? And my therapist's like, well, this is part of why I am a therapist, right? Because I had my challenges and it affected my relationships. And that's why I want to help others people with their relationships. And again, I'm still seeing this cloud up above her. Like, oh my God, what in the heck? and I just said to her, I'm like, I don't know why, but I'm compelled to tell you that your father loves you and he really wants you to know that. And no sooner did I say that here my therapist trying to be professional, right? Like a little tear started to form on her eye. And then as soon as she started crying, right, it sunk into her like what was going on. No sooner did that happen, like the cloud disappeared. I could hear things again normally. I could see like everything wasn't all cloudy and blurry. And she gathered herself together, and then we just started talking like normal, right? She just went about the session. But I was like, after the session, I was like, whoa, what was that? I didn't know. I had no idea. I was like, oh my gosh. So a few days later, it might have been a week later, I actually went out to dinner with two psychics. One was Jenny, and the other was Jennifer, right? So Jennifer and Jenny. And I remember sitting there at this dinner, and then Jennifer says to me, she goes, Joe, you're just psychic. You're so psychic. Don't you know that? I was like, what are you talking about? I saw this cloud. I didn't know what that was. And it's like, no, it's because you're so psychic. Like, huh? Because I had these psychic experiences as a child, but I turned it off. I didn't want to believe it anymore. And who am I to just go around saying, oh yeah, I'm psychic, right? She goes, no, you're psychic. And she goes, the thing with you, Joe, is that you know things, right? You just know things. And she's looking at my crown chakra, because the crown chakra is about the knowing. She goes, you know things. And then what you do is you take that information and then you get a feel for it. You want to know how it feels, right? And so she's looking at my second chakra, which is right below my belly button. And she goes, yeah, you feel things. And then you try to take a look at it with, she's looking at my third eye, my sixth chakra here. He goes, but the problem with you is you get stuck in the feeling piece of it, right? And when you're stuck in the feeling piece of it, you don't know if that's your energy, you don't know if that's someone else's energy, you don't know if that's the energy of the thing that you're sensing, right? It's hard to differentiate. So yeah, you have all those things going on for you. Not to mention with that particular thing that happened with the cloud above your therapist, in a way that's like channeling, right? And when she had that tear in her eye, essentially, she goes, what happened is that the transmission came across that her father wanted to transmit a message. You were the channel. You were the medium. And then when that message got delivered, the spirit was like, oh yeah, thank you. And then it went away. Okay. And while that sounded cool, I was like, but I didn't like that. I don't like being invaded like that. I don't want, these beings coming in anytime they want to. I mean, it's like, that was my therapy session, right? There's a time and place for that. And obviously I don't want that. I mean, it's cool, but no, I was like, no. And while, I was saying that out loud, right? On the inside, I was like, what? I want to know more. What's going on? How does that work? How do I do that again? I tried to do it again, right? Before this dinner, I tried to make it happen again. It didn't happen again, right? I didn't know how to access that on my own. So it turns out, like I said, I'm with Jennifer and Jenny, both psychics. And Jenny was like, Joe, I'm going to start this program. And it's just like this meditation thing that she's going to start her own school. And it's like, you could be my apprentice, right? And so, I'm so grateful to Jenny because she taught me a lot of the basics. Some of the basics, which I'll teach here in this very first week, right? She taught me the basics about, how to ground, how to own your space, how to control your space, right? So that these things that are on the outside or, these beings or whatever that, now it's coming from a place of choice. You don't have to let these energies in. Other people's energies. If you're a strong empath, what if you can, have these tools so that you're not. The thing with empaths is you're all you empaths out there, and I'm definitely an empath myself. We're always absorbing energy, right? Some people can see energy, that's clairvoyance. Some people can know energy, like I'm definitely a knower. And I'll get into this in a whole other video. But empaths, right? You absorb energy. And so having these tools, right? Literally for me in my development, it was literally a lifesaver. All right. Because I was taking on all these other energies, beings, coming in whenever they wanted to. And I was like, who am I? I didn't even know who I was anymore. Right. So that just began my journey. Like I said, like I needed to know more. And if you're anything like me, once you get started on something, like I wanted to know it all. And then so I was taught these with Jenny, taught this way to meditate. Literally, I was just meditating. I practiced. I dove in. I really took it to heart. And, while I was in the training, just this whole other world started to open up for me. Right. And actually, at the same time, I started getting into the world of like this, even spirituality. I don't know if you've heard of non-duality, Advaita, the power of now, like those kind of things. But, like I said, I had this Zen Buddhist kind of a therapist, and she taught me a lot of like that spiritual realm. And so I was taking the psychic training and this spiritual training, and that's kind of the flavor of what I'm going to be offering all of you, is like a combination of all of that. And like I said, I just totally immersed myself. That's just me. I'm motivated like that anyway. And many of you are like that. And things have shifted so much for me. And as we go through the 8 weeks, I'll share more and more about what shifted and how it shifted. But I will tell you that who I was way back then and who I am today, I don't even recognize that person. And that person back then won't recognize me today. So let me tell you, that was before during the training, and let me tell you about my life now. So I've been teaching at a local school here in San Diego called Intuitive Insights. Been teaching the clairvoyant training program there. I'm actually going to be moving from San Diego, so like I said, I've taken a lot of the best practices, taken a lot of what I've learned, what other students have learned, what works, what doesn't, and really condensed it all into this program. And unlike where I used to teach, I'm actually now just going to be able to handhold one-on-one guidance, and that's why I'm calling this the accelerator program. And so, just a little bit more about just how life is in addition to the teaching. Like, I just loved it so much, I wanted to teach. I will say, like, a lot of this stuff, like, I'll think of someone, literally 5 minutes later, they'll either call or text me, and that's normal for me, right? For some people, it's like, oh, that's woo-woo, or, like, oh, that's normal. Like, I'll be watching YouTube videos, and literally, like, 5 seconds to even 5 minutes before like whatever we're watching, like, I'm already knowing what's going to be covered. I don't know why, but it's just it's just one of those things. That's just how my life has been. It's to the point it's just normal, right? For some of you, maybe it's just still a little weird, maybe still a little like, oh, what the heck is that, right? But when you can start to have fun with this and have some amusement about it, man, it does become normal, and life is definitely more interesting this way. Now, in addition to teaching, I'm still a student too. Like, I love learning, and so I'm actually part of a 5-year trance mediumship program, and that's where you learn how to safely channel beings. And I do a lot of channeling consciously, right? But to channel in a trance, that's just a whole other world for me. So I'm in year 3.5 now of this 5-year program. So you might hear me say some things of just what I've learned so far, and I'd love to just share all of that with you. I will say that part of the channeling, like, what's a world that's opened up for me lately is like just channeling beings, channeling galactics, channeling archangels, like that whole experience, and just getting messages from the other side, that people, like, just having more and more confidence about all of that. Like, that whole world is just so fun for me, and I'll talk more about that, like, in some future videos, or maybe in one of my weekly meditations or weekly messages. But all in all, that's just a little bit about me. Okay, so where I was when I first started, how it was for me during the training, when I was in my own training, where things just opened up so much, and where I am today, where now I get to share this with all of you. So with that, just take a moment to reflect on your own journey. If anything I said resonated with you and you want to share with me, what resonated with you. Oh, me too, Joe. Like, I also had this. I had this as a young child. Go ahead and share that, right? And like I said, I'm going to be having this Facebook group up soon, if not already by the time of this video. But go ahead, if you want to, you can share that, text that to me, or email me. Okay, I'd love to know a little bit more about you and your story as well. All right, with that, I'm going to sign off, and we're going to get into our first little exercise here. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to text, email, and I'll respond, just like I said, within 24 hours at least, or just wait until the Q&A call. All right.